Today, Precarious plays
Final Fantasy Tactics Advance.
Are you ready to roll some dice?
Oh, yeah.
It only feels like a die roll because I didn't look at... Oh. Well.
Did we win?
No.
Did we lose?
Free stuff is... It's free.
Free stuff is free.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's this one? Oh, okay. Neat. Now we get to go to my favorite shop and my favorite tab.
Is it because of the winky shopkeeper?
It's because she has a red outfit and little pink cheeks.
Yeah, that's cute.
It's the cutest.
It is really cute. Okay, all right. Tons of cute points. Does she at least sell cool stuff?
I don't know what unique stuff they sell here. I know that some of the shops do have unique goods, but I think that they made the shops more distinct in Final Fantasy Tactics A2. I think there were more unique items that were like themed around the species that was manning the shop.
Oh. Well, that's cool.
But she's just my favorite shopkeeper, except for maybe the Sleepy Moogle. Because she's got like,
she has a look to her, yeah. She has some style going.
First off, if you look at like her sprite in the field there.
Yeah. It's
She's
also winking.
Right. And she just has like sort of like a Scandinavian snow bunny
Look
deal
to her, yeah,
going
with the
on.
red. She has like a Red Riding Hood appeal to her, an old folktale style going. Yeah, no, I get it. It's cute.
Great deals. Great swords. Good deals on great swords. That's weird.
Good deals on great swords.
I don't think they have any classes that can use great swords. So there's something that I wanted to bring up. I mentioned a while ago a class from Final Fantasy Tactics called Calculator.
Mm-hmm.
In the remake, I think it's called Arithmetic, a statistician, an arithmetician.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
That's a rough one.
it is.
And they have the arithmetic skill instead of just like math skill, I think is what it was called in Final Fantasy Tactics on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
You see, that's something else that I'll have to tell you about at some point. And it's the idea of like definitive additions.
What?
Well, okay, so just really quickly here. In Ocarina of Time, for the 3DS, there is a definite improvement in that, if I remember correctly, the iron boots, couldn't you assign them to a C button?
Yeah, I think so.
And that made them much more usable.
Yeah.
In the original, you had to go into that inventory subscreen
Every time?
every time.
No, sometimes I would hook it up as my secondary weapon. Depending on, I mean, if all I was going to do is platform and I already had the sword assigned permanently and all I needed was, yeah. And I did that with the winged boots too. Sometimes I had the winged boots on a button and the heavy boots on another button that was easy to reach.
Yeah. Well, that is a definite improvement, right?
Yeah.
Generally, I would say that the lack of flexibility, like having to use the touchscreen,
Yeah.
is a pretty serious downgrade, though.
Yes.
Because 2 of those items, you have to use the touchscreen, and you found that very uncomfortable. I didn't much like it either, you know?
Yeah.
I would describe it as a problem. So I would say that there is not a definitive edition of Ocarina of Time. Because
Oh,
3DS.
okay. I see. So a definitive edition would be like the one that has the most best and it
Everything.
is closest to everyone's intentions and it's good.
Right.
Okay,
And
I got it.
there isn't one. Like, that's one of my problems with Wind Waker HD.
Because it's
A lot of
very up for debate. You can always be like, well, I like the old one. The old one is definitive because it was the first one. And then people will be like, no, the newest one's
Well, not
definitive
even-
because of the graphics or...
Not even that. It's just like, okay, so again, using Wind Waker HD as an example, generally, having it in widescreen and having the textures at a higher resolution looks better.
Yeah.
I think that the addition of largely unnecessary bloom lighting actually made the game look worse in spots. Like, I think that some of the fire effects, where in the GameCube edition of the game, it had this really charming, like, cut paper look.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking about, like, Moblin lanterns.
Yes! It did. Oh, it did look like cut paper.
There was, like, a really well-defined, like, shape on the ground of one color, and then there was, like, a second ring of usually, like, a more muted color.
Well, like what they're doing on the flashing buttons right there. You didn't stop long enough
Sorry.
to... But you see how there are 3 shades of yellow on those indicators.
Right, and it's really clear.
It's extremely clear. Now this is not... this is pixelated,
Right.
so it's not quite the same, but... You know, cut paper is the best way to think about it.
Right, and there was just... They changed that effect, so it's gone, and now it's just a gradient, just a smooth gradient.
And maybe that's more accurate, but it's less fun, unless you really like that more accurate. See,
Well, no, I think it looks completely... I think that it was a mistake. Like, this is not one of the ones that I would say is up for debate, like some
Yeah.
of the control scheme
stuff.
situations. It does not gel. It does not gel with the rest of the environment. It'd be like if they removed the charming Wind Waker smoke effects
Yeah.
and just replaced them with like a Battlefield Call of Duty-esque explosion.
Like real smoke
Real smoke, yeah, billowing.
and fire. It doesn't fit with the original art style very well.
Right, it is a mismatched aesthetic decision that I think was just overlooked because it was probably just like a blanket lighting engine change.
Yeah.
Anyway, way off subject. That's one of my problems with Final Fantasy Tactics is a lot of people, I think, consider the PSP edition as definitive because it had so many improvements
Yeah.
over the original.
Yeah.
But a lot of the retranslated stuff doesn't feel necessary to me, and I think it just makes it harder to discuss. Because if I were to say calculator, I know that there have got to be people who have only played the PSP edition of the game,
Yeah.
and they're like, what the fuck, calculator?
A calculator?
Calculator? And then I would have to be like, yeah, they have, like, the spells are free, and you have to select from a list of things you know, and then you get to hit everybody on the field that,
Yeah.
like, has that condition, and then they're like, oh, you mean like an arithmetician?
Oh.
Arithmetician.
Yeah, and they just use a different word because they wanted to retranslate it.
Right, and there are
and
several
do-
examples of that.
Yeah, and
In
do
the
a
game.
better job, but I don't know, even if it's an error in translation, by the time you're getting around to a remake, you need to kind of stick to your guns on what to call stuff.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with some of the names, with some names as well. Anyway, calculator. Do I still have time? I didn't accidentally spend all the time. Okay, yeah, that's probably enough. Calculator is a very interesting class because it's very weak on its own.
Okay.
It has poor stats, and I don't think if you were to somehow inexplicably just start life, your adventuring career as a calculator,
Yeah.
I think you wouldn't actually be able to do anything.
What do you mean?
Calculator, all of its abilities, like the screen we're looking at right now,
Yeah.
it's just this combinatorial list of options.
Mm-hmm.
So let me try to give you a practical example. You would learn like different phrases, basically, that you would combine together into a math sentence.
Right.
And then anyone that met the requirements of that sentence would be targeted by spells that you had learned from other classes.
That sounds really complicated and interesting.
Well, yes.
But if you started with just plus signs and had no numbers, then...
Right. Yeah, it is. And I think it's like the last part is the spell that you were casting. So it is sort of like, it's part of that equation. So as an example right now, if I were to say, I want the target to be level 5, and I want to cast Holy, it would scan everyone on the field, both sides, and everyone that had a level that was a multiple of 5,
Yeah.
they would get blasted by Holy. So it would be Jonah,
Yeah.
it would have been Trudy, it'd be, look at that. It would have been Audette, sorry. And it would have been Seneca. That's probably how you say that now that I say it out loud. They all would have been blasted with Holy. And Cecilia. For no MP cost. It was as powerful as it was complicated and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, I think that if you've mastered that job and all the other jobs required to make it work, you've sort of earned it.
Yeah.
But I think the designers didn't agree because they stripped that out of the series. It didn't make a comeback in Tactics Advance or A2.
Oh.
Which is a little sad. Gadgeteer, though. Got Gadgeteer. Gadgeteer is probably the closest. It's funny, though, that it's just like a die roll instead of math.
Yeah.